It's never too early to start preparing for the fantasy football season. So let's take a look at the quarterback position. 5 quarterback sleepers for 2021, counting down, starting with number 5. What about Baker Mayfield? A guy that a lot of fantasy managers have just kind of forgotten about until the end of last season. Look, too many turnovers, wasn't able to produce big games like he did in his rookie season, but all of that changed in the second half. For whatever reason, maybe just the light bulb flipped on, but Baker Mayfield was excellent, and it became not just a run-first offense, it became a Baker Mayfield-led offense. In the final 8 regular season games, Mayfield only threw 1 interception as opposed to 11 touchdowns. And this is a guy that finally seems to be in command of his team. Look, he did this without Odell Beckham, with kind of a hodgepodge of receivers, to be honest. So just imagine when he has a full complement of weapons next season. Mayfield is going to be kind of slept on. Don't think he'll be drafted as a starting quarterback after a lot of people feel like they were maybe burned by him the last couple seasons. But this is a guy who really could take another step forward and be a top 10 fantasy quarterback, but available later in the mid rounds of your draft.
Yeah, it's easy to forget that after his rookie year, there was a lot of hype for Baker Mayfield. Then they went out and traded for Odell Beckham Jr., and he was being drafted as a top 5 fantasy quarterback. Let everybody down that year. Last year started slow, but turned it on down the stretch. So he can actually do it. We've seen him do it. He was very good down the stretch last year. Should have a healthy Odell Beckham back next year, like you said. Should get some of those weapons back, and that's going to be a big help for him. And then it's easy to forget about our number 4 sleeper as well, and that's Carson Wentz, because he was awful in 2020, right? This is a guy who every year prior to that, when he was healthy, had been a QB1 in fantasy. He'd been a top 12, if not a top 10 option in fantasy football. Likely going to be a Chicago Bear. That's at least the most likely landing spot, it sounds like, in 2021. And while that may not sound like a great situation for him, any change of scenery at this point has got to be good for him. And you got to think the Bears, maybe that's enough to lure Allen Robinson back, but even if it's not, they're probably going to do what they can to bolster that wide receiver group. We saw last year, Darnell Mooney, the rookie, he took a big leap. He could be a potential second-year breakout. So could have some good receivers there. He's got a good young tight end in Cole Kmet. Maybe they bring Jimmy Graham back. He's got some pass-catching options there. It can't be worse than it was in Philadelphia. And again, it's very rare that a guy goes undrafted, which I don't think Carson Wentz is going to be drafted in 1 QB leagues. It's very rare he goes undrafted, who's had multiple top 12 seasons under his belt. This is a guy who we know can do it. We know he can do it for fantasy. Maybe that change of scenery is all he needs. He definitely has sleeper potential in 2021.
Yeah, it's way too early to give up on a guy who was the number 2 overall pick of the draft and did have that one incredible season, really. And then, injury obviously knocked him out. Inconsistent since, and of course, everyone's just going to remember the, miserable 2020. I mean, it was bad. There's no getting around that. But a change of scenery, like you said, that could be all that he needs. Look, if he happens to get reunited with Frank Reich in Indianapolis, that would be great for his value. Even if he goes to the Bears, which I know that's just for some people to be like the kiss of death. Look, if they franchise Allen Robinson and they got Darnell Mooney, Anthony Miller, some solid receivers, it's too early to give up on him. Look, even Trubisky was able to put up some good fantasy games toward the second half of the season. I think Wentz is definitely capable. All right, now our number 3 choice here, a guy, we're going to assume he's a starter because we're also assuming Drew Brees is going to retire. The word has not come down yet, but Taysom Hill could be the starting quarterback in New Orleans. And we've seen what he can do, kind of a Cam Newton light, 8 rushing touchdowns in 8 starts. And actually was pretty good passing the ball at times too. Now, is it going to work over the course of a full season? That remains to be seen. Are they going to firmly commit to him as the starter? Well, they've already committed to him contractually, but is it as a starting quarterback? You've got to think yes. Sean Payton loves him. They got to like what they saw out of him, considering the way that they finished the season strong until Drew Brees came back. Playoffs didn't go as they wanted, but that wasn't Taysom Hill's fault. So got to think that he's going to be the guy, and there's a lot of potential here. So even though clearly there's risk, this is a guy, it's not going to be drafted as a top 10 quarterback, and the breakout potential is real, if nothing else, just based on his running ability. All right, so I think Taysom Hill is a smart pick. And look, I've got to say that I stuck to this because in our early mock draft, that's right, we've already done a draft, I took Taysom Hill as my quarterback. Why not play the late round quarterback game? Take a guy who could be a breakout candidate.
Absolutely agree. And we saw in his starts last year in 2020, he has top 5 upside, right? Because of his rushing ability, his ability to score rushing touchdowns. He had a couple nice passing games. So while he may not give you those huge numbers through the air, he can give you those numbers with his legs. Kind of like Kyler Murray, but I'm not on the level of Kyler Murray. I'm not saying he's like Kyler Murray, but the same thing where Kyler Murray can go out there and only throw for, 150, 190 yards, but it doesn't matter because he runs for 50 and scores a touchdown. And that's what Taysom Hill can do. And for a guy who, like you said, probably going to be outside of the top 10, doesn't get much better than that. And then number 2, we have a guy who's also kind of been forgotten, and that is Joe Burrow, last year's number 1 pick. It's easy to forget about him because Justin Herbert got all the hype, won Offensive Rookie of the Year, right? Everybody's going to draft Justin Herbert as a top 10 quarterback probably, and they're going to forget about Joe Burrow, who had 4 games with over 300 yards passing, had another game with over 400 yards passing. You got to think one of the priorities for this Cincinnati Bengals team is going to be to bolster that offensive line, to give him protection. I know there's some concern that maybe he won't be 100% from that ACL injury, but look, this isn't, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. These guys recover. He should be fine for week 1. Even if he misses the first game, let's say, you're still potentially getting an every week top 10, top 15 quarterback who might not even be drafted in a lot of leagues because people are going to think, again, he missed a time, he's hurt, and all the hype is going to Justin Herbert right now. So as much as I like Justin Herbert, I think if you want a second-year quarterback at a steep discount, you just take Joe Burrow with one of your last picks and probably get similar upside.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Sometimes the injury discount is worth it. You know what? Even if Burrow misses week 1 or week 2, so what? That's not going to cost you anything. You draft a solid backup quarterback, you stream somebody. This is a guy who was leading the league in pass attempts and yardage several weeks into his rookie season. Just think about the production he could put up in his sophomore season. So absolutely a guy who's probably going to be way undervalued. Again, we're assuming he's healthy and ready to go at least toward the beginning of the season. I know they're saying that it was a serious injury, with multiple different parts with ligaments, not just the ACL. I get all that, but look, you monitor, like you would with any player, you monitor the health situation over the offseason, and then if the discount comes, you definitely take it. Our number 1 pick, though, as our potential league-winning quarterback, a guy who's probably going to be way undervalued in drafts. Well, we talked about Carson Wentz, not in Philadelphia anymore. That's because Jalen Hurts showed and proved that he is the starting quarterback for Philadelphia and should be. Look, this is a guy who, when he first came on to start, never having played extended snaps in the NFL, immediately made an impact. And in just his second start, 338 yards, 3 touchdowns, 63 yards rushing, and a touchdown. He practically won you your week by himself if you were smart enough to start him in week 15. We talked about him in our start sit. Week 15, I said, you've got to go with him. And then even in week 16, the numbers weren't that amazing. He still threw for over 300 yards and showed that he can definitely be the quarterback of the future, which is why the team moved on from Doug Peterson, and now they're going to move on from Carson Wentz. Hurts is the guy. Look, he's got that dual threat ability. Talked about Kyler Murray. This could be the next Kyler Murray very easily. He's already shown the rushing ability, and he is not afraid to throw it deep and make big plays. Assuming the Eagles add maybe another receiver, either free agency or the draft, or both, this offense should be a lot more explosive. So Jalen Hurts, the term league winner, we could throw that around all day. This is the guy I'm definitely willing to slap that label on.
Totally agree. He absolutely could be a league winner in 2021 drafts. I did a video talking about Jalen Hurts. You can watch that right here where I break it all down. But look at his 3 starts from a fantasy perspective. He had 19, 37, and 20 fantasy points in each of those games. Obviously, week 17, that ridiculous benching by Doug Peterson that probably led to his dismissal as head coach. But Jalen Hurts, legitimate top 5 upside in 2021 if the Eagles do indeed trade Carson Wentz, which is seeming more and more likely by the day, and Jalen Hurts is a starter, which also seems more and more likely by the day. So don't come out of your drafts without drafting Jalen Hurts. If the rest of your league is scared off by him, just wait, grab him with one of your last picks. You will have a league-winning quarterback in 2021.
Absolutely. For more league-winning picks at each position, look no further to Fantasy Football Endgame. We've got you covered. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. All right, thanks for watching, and good luck in 2021.